Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Naila Isa, and I'd like to go through a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. You can maximize or minimize the webinar pane during the presentation by using the red orange arrow buttons in the upper left corner. During the webinar, we also encourage you to ask questions. In the webinar pane, you'll see a question box that you can use to type your question and click submit. Our presenters will answer those questions as time allows. Second, for good audio quality, please check your setting to ensure the appropriate audio option is selected. If you're using a telephone, please click on the phone call audio option. Or if you're listening through your computer, then please click on the computer audio option. To qualify for CPE, you must actively respond to all polling questions and stay on for the duration of the entire broadcast. If you have technical difficulties responding to the polling questions, please send an email to elevate@armaninollp.com with the name and date of your session along with your poll responses. You'll receive your certificate within 5 business days. Also, please know, as a participant, you'll receive a link to download the slide deck and recorded presentation within 48 hours. Our presenters today are Eric Thomas, David Miller, and Youngsung Cook. Today's topics include how you can meet the tight filing deadline of January 31st, strategies to avoid the usual year-end rush that result in bandwidth problems, explanation of our customizable turnkey and secure electronic solutions that are available for all 1099s, 1042s, 3921, and 3922. Now I'll pass it off to Eric, who will get us started.
Thanks, Nyla. This is Eric Thomas. I'm a partner in the Armanino consulting practice, helping nonprofits, small companies, venture-backed startups, and others with their outsourced accounting needs. Very excited to be talking to you today. We had our first ever standing ovation yesterday for this topic. So, ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat today. So let's kick it off with Youngsung. Can you introduce yourself and tell us about the upcoming deadlines?
Hi, good morning, everybody. So great to be here with you all. My name is Youngsung Cook, and I'm a manager in the Armanino Consulting Department, more specifically Business Outsourcing Services. And I lead the non-income tax compliance team here in our Center of Excellence in Boise office. As for the upcoming deadlines for all 1099s, as you may well know, it's usually the last day of January. But with the January 31st falling on Sunday, it's going to be February 1st of next year.
Thanks, Youngsung. So here we go. We're going to get into this now. David, can you tell us about the changes this year after you introduce yourself?
I certainly can. Greetings, everyone. I'm also monitoring the chat for everyone, and I'm noticing some people are maybe having, I think everyone's having, I think the audio issues are cleared up. Can someone chat in the question and say, yes, I can hear the audio, just to make sure we can. Okay, now, thank you very much, appreciate that. Okay. Greetings, everyone. My name is David Miller. I'm a partner here at Armanino in our consulting group. I've been with Armanino going into my 6th year. I specialize in outsourcing, really working with a lot of emerging market companies. My experience is mostly in private industry. Spent much of my career at CFO level positions. I also worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers in management consulting for several years. I successfully completed my CPA, and I also have an MBA, and I'm really excited to be here today. So let me just tell you a little bit. One of the big changes that's happening, for those of you who don't know, is the 1099 miscellaneous form has been and separated, and there's now a new form called the 1099 NEC, and that stands for non-employee compensation. So that is one of the biggest changes that's happening this year, and it's replaced not the entire miscellaneous form. It's only replaced the miscellaneous box 7 with this new form. and it's only starting in this tax year. So any wages, non-employee compensation, that was formerly reported in that box 7 will now go into this 1099 NEC box 1. Eric, what do you think of that?
Well, that's significant, right? We've got some polling questions related to that coming up, but this is a big change to this form. It's probably, I feel it's necessary. So, Young Sung, can you tell us, can you tell us when the best time, we're going to get into the details of the solution that we offer, but when's the best time for people to work with us if they need our help with their 1099 filing?
The time is now. I would say mid-December is the best time frame before we go off for the Christmas break. From my past experiences, vast majority of the people or the clients that I've worked with, they tend to kind of wait till last minute, which is understandable because of the year-end closes. And, you know, with this year going in with all the COVID, you know, they may be dealing with the short staff. So our recommendation is to get in the game. So act now. The time is right now as we speak. As for, we'll talk more about our services that are being offered, but I just wanted to point out that in order for us to be able to guarantee on-time filing for the what we call the self-serve basic service, our deadline is going to be January 20th.
Thanks, Young Sung. So, David, can you walk us through what happens if people do not file their 1099s and other compliance forms on time?
Well, it's very interesting. For a informational form, the penalties can get pretty steep. So, and the penalties kind of break down into 3 areas, right? So, there are 3 time periods. The first time period is basically within the first 30 days. So, after January 31st and before February or before March 1st, excuse me. Then the next period is kind of between March 1st and August 1st. And then it's anything after August 1st. And those penalties are structured in the following way. Within that first 30 days, you're potentially going to risk, by filing late, $50 per 1099 form. Now, it does have a cap of about $197,500. So there is a cap on it, but you could be penalized right away. The other one, after that 30 days, after March 1st, that fine increases, or the penalty increases from $50 to $110. And also, the cap is not purely proportional. The cap actually goes up to $565,000. So they can charge you a little bit more as well. And then that accelerates even more after that, up to $280 per 1099 if you file after that 8/1 for a maximum of $1.1 million. So it's really important to get these done timely. I would tell you, in all our experiences with 1099s, it has historically, I think the perspective is, oh, this only happens in January and it's kind of a one and done thing. I would tell you the 1099 still continues throughout the year. We have helped clients throughout the year. Certainly 95% of the work is happening in January, but there are clients that come to us, whether they're, they may be startups that may be doing first time income tax filings, and they didn't know about the deadline. They're coming to us. Sometimes they're foreign corporations that didn't know about the requirements here in the United States, and sometimes they're just behind. And this is a year when things have happened and people may be getting behind. So it's really important that as you're talking to your colleagues and or folks out there, make sure that you remind them that these deadlines are in place, and there can be significant penalties if you're not filing on time.
Yeah, and they'll also penalize you for not filing correctly, which for certain organizations has to be electronically. Young Sung, what's the number of forms that triggers that electronic filing requirement?
Yes, that's going to be 250. So if you have to issue more than 250 1099 forms to your vendors, you are required to e-file those. Anything below, you can still paper file.
Thanks. So we're looking at over $1 million potential penalties for filing an informational return late or incorrectly. Nobody likes penalties. Let's cleanse our palate before we move on with our first polling question.
All right. So, are you guys ready to file your 1099 NEC? All right, I'll give you guys a little bit more to answer. All right. So, about 61% of you answered no.
61%. David, is that in line with what you expected?
Yeah, I think that's about right. I think that's about right. I'm not surprised by that. It's a new requirement. I know we're going to get into some more of this, but not surprised.
And Youngsung is the leader of our compliance practice. Is that in line with your expectations and what you've been receiving for emails already?
Yeah, I'm surprised that almost like 40% of the people responded they're ready. So there are a good number of people out there. I expected the number to be a little bit lower because of the new form, and we're still like, you know, not even in the midway through the December. So that's good to know.
Great. So,
hey Eric, I'm getting a bunch of questions. I think first of all, I appreciate all these questions coming in. I'm going to try and get to a couple of these. Youngsung, here's one for you. The question on the 1099 miscellaneous was, is box 7 rents?
Box 7 rent for, I need to better.
So I said, right, that the 1099 so that non-employee compensation replaces box 7 on the 1099 miscellaneous form. The question was, is that the rents one? I think the answer to that is no.
No.
Right.
Right. So the box 7 of the 1099 miscellaneous, like for tax year 2020, right?
Well, it used to be. What was it used to be? What was the box on the 1099 miscellaneous that we're replacing?
It was non-employee compensation. So payment that you give out to the, you know, independent contractor, basically. It's becoming its own form.
That's right. Okay. The other one was the next question here. It's a bit of a long question. So couple clarifications that I think are good. One is, you're saying that the new 1099 NEC needs to be filed separately from the 1099 miscellaneous form, and therefore both 1099 miscellaneous and 1099 NEC will be required to be filed.
Yes. Yes. The answer is yes. Especially you are still required to use 1099 miscellaneous if you have rent or royalty. So, you know, or if you had like litigation settlement that involved lawyers, all of those good stuff stays with 1099 miscellaneous. So let's say if you had a rent payment, right, along with you made significant amount of, you know, payment to various independent contractors. In that scenario, you're going to have to file both 1099 miscellaneous as well as the new 1099 NEC.
Great. And Eric, just keep me honest, keep us on time if I'm going. I'm going to take just one more because there was another good one in here, and talked about the extension. Can you guys talk about the extensions available for tax year 2020 related to the 1099? And I want to confirm the extension is just for the filing of the form only, meaning you still have to get it to the recipient on time. Youngsung, do you have insight into that?
Yes, the answer is yes. All the recipient copies are due on the February 1st because January 31st being falling on Sunday. And then IRS grants you extension. I think you can file extension for 1 month. So it's basically something that you can actually file through, but that you are still required to issue the recipient copy. So that's kind of like makes it, it doesn't really make sense, right? So what I've seen in my experience is that, I haven't seen IRS penalizing somebody for not providing recipient copies by the deadline, the required date, but that's what they're saying. So technically, they still can penalize you for it. So the idea is this ties back to the reason why we were saying don't hold off until the very last minute. The time is now, right? Because if you really get in the game right now, you wouldn't find yourself in that situation, and that is our recommendation.
Perfect. I'm gonna hit one more for you, Young Sung, and then I think
I want to add something to that. The real life penalty for not providing your recipients by the deadline is that your phone and email, your inbox and your voicemail box will absolutely blow up the week after those are due, because all your recipients are expecting it so they can file their taxes, and they'll be contacting you if you miss that deadline.
Yep. One last thing on this, and I think then we got to move on. There's some other good questions coming in, and we have an FAQ at the end we can address. I think we'll get to some of these. Was the 250, the 250 filing, is the 250 forms minimum filing electronic minimum requirement across all entities or for a single entity? Do you have
single entity per federal tax ID, whoever's filing these forms? So let's say if you had 250 recipients or the vendors, right, then you are required to file electronically.
Okay. All right, Eric, let's keep going. And then I would also say, for those, keep the questions coming in. We will respond to all of these. We have some more content. I think we'll cover some of these as we go, but keep them coming in.
Thanks, David. So maybe an unintended consequence of these changes that the government has made to the form, when we go to ask ourselves at this time of year, am I ready to file my 1099s? You may think you're ready, but because of the effects of this on software, you might not be. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, David?
Yeah, so here's what's happening out there in the marketplace. There are software tools, and we work with a number of different ones, but a couple of the big ones like Great Plains, Sage Intact. Now, Great Plains, as an example, and there's others, may require you to upgrade and go through an entire upgrade process in order to handle the filing of the 1099 forms through their technology. So, and that can be given all the other challenges you have coming into year end, all the other obvious marketplace challenges we've had this year, that can be a time-consuming process. So we offer an opportunity to be able to file it electronically, and also a lot of so we can help solve that pain point for you. So going back to a lot of other accounting applications are able to print off reports. So they kind of get you 90 to 95% of the way there. They don't kind of cover the last mile, if you will. And so we can take a lot of that input and be able to file that electronically. So we can kind of cover that gap for you. So it's really important that you kind of look at understand what the capabilities of your accounting systems are, particularly if you're in a new accounting system this year and you're not really sure. Definitely reach out to your service provider, ask the question. If you need help, we're going to get into how we can help solve some of those pain points. But I think it's really important to understand what the capabilities are of the technology that you have, and if you feel like it's going to create a big time crunch for you, which it could, it's important to have some alternatives.
Thanks. So, Young Sung, does this solution only work for 1099s?
No, we can definitely do 1042S, 3921, 3922, 1098, and 1095C.
Can't forget 1095C. Okay, so we have new filing requirements. We may have to gather missing W-9s. Software may need to be updated. We're all still operating in a pandemic, but the deadline has not been extended. So David, how can we help?
Well, we can help, particularly, we've got a couple of solutions that we can help to solve those pain points. We've got I would call a very turnkey basic service, bit of a self-serve model, where we actually then take your information and file it electronically with the IRS. And then the other option is more of I would say, a hands-on white glove service of really working, starting, I would say, 1 or 2 steps even before that process, which is cleaning up your vendor file, making sure you have all the backup documentation. And then there's some additional features that we're going to get into and talk about. But those are sort of the 2 big pieces: a basic service, which is pretty much self-serve, and we can help validate and get the information over electronically to the IRS. And then another one, which is more what we call an enhanced service, which is really more starting with your vendor file, getting the helping you get all the backup together. And there's a variety of reasons why there's different reasons why you may choose one or the other service.
Thanks. So, Young-Sung, what size entities are appropriate for this service?
The short answer is any. There's no limit to any sizes or number of forms. We have filed more than 14,000 forms, one client this past year. And we could file 150 forms if that's the need. So the idea is no limit to sizes or number of forms. We can handle just about anything.
So you're saying size doesn't matter?
None at all. So size doesn't matter.
Okay, moving on. Next polling question.
All right. Do you think you're going to file more MICs or NECs?
Hey, just to fill the dead air a little bit, again, I see your questions coming in. We will, if we don't get to them or don't cover them today, we will make sure that we respond back when we send the information. We'll make sure that we address the questions. I think we're going to get to many of these as we go.
All right, so 64% said they'll file more NECs.
What do you think about those results, David and Young-Sung?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, that's not surprising. It's still a big part of the economy out there, and still a big part of how people kind of make their business succeed. So, what about you, Young-Sung? What do you think?
Yeah, based on my experience, I've seen vast majority of the 1099s that are used to be 1099 miscellaneous, I would say 70 to 80%, right? Now, so 64% is saying that they're going to be filing NEC. That's kind of right on the what I've seen in my own career, because vast majority of the 1099 miscellaneous were basically for the non-employee compensation. So that's kind of good to know. I'm not surprised at all. That's about the kind of same range that I was expecting.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Just these results kind of show why it does make sense to roll out this NEC form. As much as we don't like change, the majority of the miscellaneouses were used to report non-employee compensation. Okay, back to the good stuff. Now we're going to talk about our compliance solutions. So David, in a world of electric cars and smartphones, why would anyone want a basic service?
Why wouldn't you want it, right? It operates very much in that type of environment. So our approach is really to be able to file your 1099 form electronically. We're using a secure technology, and we use pre-populated templates, right? So if you're an accounting group or a finance team, and you've got all your ducks in a row and everything cleaned up and ready to go, but you're not sure how to get it over, not sure how to file it electronically, we can help you with that. Once we have that template, we provide that template to you. We actually provide access to a secure self-service portal. There's an applicable template determined by your form requirements. So not just for the 1099 form, believe it or not, we have other forms as well, other templates to service your various forms, including some of the other ones we just mentioned. And then you can receive and process that completed template through a secure delivery portal. And then we actually review. One of the really key things is when we get the content and we process the template, we're actually going to review the 1099 recipient payment summary information for completeness and reasonableness, and we're just going to make sure that there's our process does a tax ID verification check with the IRS for compliance. So if something kicks out, we'll let you know about that, and we'll help. We can even help get that resolved with you if needed. And then we'll do the e-filing with the IRS, right? And then we'll notify the IRS, and we'll send out the recipient copies directly to them. And then we also let you know and let the client know when the filing is done, and we do it via email, and then we provide PDF copies of all those 1099s back to the client. So you have a documentation of everything.
Well, that sounds pretty comprehensive for a basic service. Maybe we should go back to our marketing team and ask for some help. Young-Sung, so there's a lot involved there. What's the turnaround time from when your team receives the information to when they provide or complete the service?
So assuming we have a really good, clean set of template that David talked about, our turnaround time is going to be within the 24 hours.
Wow, that's fast. They should have used your team to count the ballots. Okay, time for another polling question.
All right. What is a 3921?
You getting a lot of answers?
Yep.
Great.
All right, I'm going to close it in a few seconds. All right, Eric, do you want to provide the answer?
Sure. It is used to provide employees with information relating to stock options that were exercised during the year. Number A, letter A. So Young-Sung, do you file many 3921s?
Yes, we have a lot of tech companies as our clients, so we do a ton of 3921s as well as 3922, another stock option purchased through employee stock purchase plan. So 3922s, ton of 3922s as well.
Excellent. Okay, let's move on. Now we're talking the enhanced service. David, what is this and how is it different than the basic, which was very comprehensive?
Yeah, well, let me tie it into the requirements, right? And I think part of being able to file these forms successfully, right? The best practice is making sure that you've got W-9s and supporting documentation that go along with each one of these vendors, and that can be a gap. And there's a reason why you may have a gap for not having your records up to date. So one is just the transition in your accounting shop that could have happened this year. You may have had some turnover at the payables level. You may have had some turnover in other parts of the group. Again, you may have switched accounting systems during the year, and you may have just taken your eye inadvertently got behind and haven't had an opportunity to get caught up. The other one is the accounting system can also the vendor's information can also just need to be refreshed. You need to be able to go back to your vendors to be able to get that information. So there's a number of reasons why, and I think it's really important that you kind of assess that. Look, there's been a lot going on this year. I know all of us also struggled. Perhaps many of us struggled to get into the virtual environment. So it's another reason, you know, you may be just kind of keeping up, and you need some help. But really getting that W-9 information and making sure that it's accurate is really a critical part of the process. So the other way that we can help is being able to actually take that vendor file and be able to analyze that vendor file for requirements around your various vendors that need to be reported on the 1099s, whether it's the 1099 NEC or any of these other 1099 types of requirements, rents, royalties, etc. We can actually go through the data. We'll collect and we'll actually work with your vendors. We can go to your vendors on your behalf, save you that time of doing it. We also do one of the big things, particularly here in California, is kind of the state is the worker classification compliance check. This is another thing you got to be aware of, because there's a couple things that can happen if you file a 1099 with just on a social security number, and the person for whatever reason thinks that they think they're actually an employee of the company, even though they're in a contractor status. That can, particularly in the state of California, that can create some problems with the EDD. So we do a little bit of analysis to make sure that, and to highlight any particular areas where you think you could be at risk for future, for unemployment audits or other types of audits done by the EDD. And then we have all the other same support that we have with the other ones, which is electronic filings, preparation, all those other things done. But it's a much more hands-on process.
Great. So it sounds like if you're just too busy or you don't want to be bothered with it, you can pass it off to us. So I'm sure now everyone's wondering, we've covered compliance, we've covered what the service is. How much is this? Can you two walk us through this pricing and what it really looks like for the person?
Sure. So basically, very simply, we offer our support based on a per form basis. It's also self-service. You'll see in a moment. You can download the engagement letter, complete it, send it back to us, estimate what you think the forms are going to be, and at the very end of the process, we'll true it up. You gotta be able to do the best that you can. You may know exactly based on history, or you may have an approximate number. We'll true it up at the end, whether it's over or under. We'll make sure that we are absolutely fair in that process. And then you can see it's just two levels, right? And it's on a per form basis. Particularly for there are those situations where there are larger clients, and we would sit down and talk to you about how we can best support you and best help you.
Great. And so that 4,000, that's purely just because of the 4,000 plus, that's purely just because there's people out there that could have 10, 20,000 1099s that may need help, and it really makes sense for us to just talk through it with them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we've handled, I think, Young Sun, correct if I'm wrong, but I think one of our biggest ones has been 13,000. And, we just want to make sure we understand, make sure we're fair, make sure everybody, if there's any particular nuances to the information, it just gives us an opportunity to make sure that we're doing it the proper way, doing it right the first time. Young Sun, anything you want to add to any of this?
No, I would say it was actually 14,000, but I agree with everything that you said.
Thanks. So we're going to have some good time left for the questions coming in, David, as well as our FAQs. But next we have our fourth and final polling question. Can you fire that up, Nyla?
Yep. So when was the last year the IRS used the 1099 NEC? And just as a reminder, guys, I see a lot of questions in the chat regarding the deck. Yes, you will receive the deck and the webinar recording within 48 hours of this presentation. I'll give it a few more seconds. As a reminder, you guys need to answer all questions to qualify for CPE. All right. So 67% said never. This is the first year. Eric, do you want to tell us the answer?
Yes, this was our bonus extra credit question. So this is not the first time the IRS has used the 1099-NEC. The last year they used it was in 1982. President Reagan, in the significant tax changes that he rolled out, made it 1982 the last year that the NEC was formed. So as always, what's old is new, what's new is old. And we are back using the 1099 NEC. So David alluded to this, but we do have a nice summary here to walk you through how we can help. Young-Sung, can you take us through this, since David kind of talked to it a bit, but you're the one on the receiving end of these?
Sure. I'd be more than happy to. So basically, there's going to be what we call a landing page, and there's a hyperlink embedded in there. So once you received this slide back, you can just click on that. It'll take you to a website, and you'll find basic and enhanced service, some information that are there. But the essential part is this. So you go in there, you should be able to download the actual engagement letter. The engagement letter, in my opinion, is fairly straightforward. It has some assumptions that we're assuming to make sure that we ensure quality of the work. I don't think it'll take a whole lot for you to read through the engagement letter. In my opinion, maybe 10 minutes or so. So you can read through and then select the service that you want. And there's as you saw in the pricing matrix, our pricing is per form based on the volume of the forms required, right? So this is something that you're going to have to come up with the best estimate. That's all we're asking, and then you can select that, and the payment amount is going to be indicated in there. So if you sign it and return it over to us, signed engagement letter should be sent to compliance@armaninolp.com, and from there we'll take it from there, and you can expect to hear from my team with the 1099 at armaninolp.com as a sender address. And then, we're going to basically set you up for payment via credit card. And then next step is for us to schedule a call, and you'll hear from our team, I should have said, and then, off you go.
Thanks, Young-Sung. So we kept our presentation pretty brief because we knew that with all these changes, there are going to be a ton of audience questions. So the remainder of our time will be used to present our FAQs, frequently asked questions, as well as audience questions. So David, why don't you kick us off with an audience question first?
I will do that, and I'm gonna pick through some of the chat. I think there's some very, very specific questions in here, and I'm gonna try and keep us up a little bit higher level altitude right now. So if I'm skipping over your question, I'm not ignoring you. We'll absolutely get back to you. But there are some very specific ones in here. But I want to make sure I hit some things that I think other folks are thinking about. So one person asked about if we're showing the new forms during this presentation. The answer is no. That's good feedback for us. But you can actually, Young-Sung, if you want to get access to the form, how could you get access to the form? I think I know the answer, but I'm going to defer to the expert here.
Sure, just Google 1099 NEC, and you'll see it first line.
Perfect. And also you can Google 1099 MISC so that you can see what that the 2020 version. Make sure you're looking when you do Google that one. Make sure you are looking at the 2020 version. They're both out there. They're also available on the IRS site as well. That's that. I think. Let's see here. We've got. This was an interesting one. I'm not sure we actually have an answer for this, but. Their 1099 service provider said they can no longer generate a 1099 miscellaneous form for Box 7 corrections. So Young-Sung, I think we talked about corrections at some point, but maybe you can kind of give us a little bit of how we deal with the any legacy corrections for 2019.
So IRS has two versions of 1099 miscellaneous for tax year 2020, right? Because with the introduction of NEC. So let's talk about correction. If we're talking about 2019, tax year 2019 correction, you should be able to do that. There shouldn't be any issue. And I disagree with your service provider who's saying that you couldn't correct the past year, right? Now the question is, let's say if you have to make corrections on 2020 form, IRS has both separate 1099 forms for the tax year 2020, so you should be able to do all corrections. You just have to remember to use corresponding form. And the most important thing is that, you know, the 2020 NEC only applies going forward. So anything that happened the prior, you can basically go through the same process, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Here's another one for you, or either one of you. I think a more straight ahead question: which form do you report the legal fees for LLCs or partnerships? And
right.
That's a little bit of a trick question, actually, isn't it, Youngson?
Yeah. This is a really common mistake that we see a whole lot, and we have to communicate this quite a bit. But there's a big confusion there, right? Whenever that you hear lawyer, whenever that you made a payment to the lawyer, you automatically assume that, oh, this is a box 14, good old 2019 miscellaneous, if I'm talking about payment to growth proceeds to attorney, right? That's incorrect, right? So whenever you made payments to lawyers for their legal services, whether it's, you know, helping you with the contract or with, you know, filing a lawsuit, like lawsuit, or any service fee that you paid, should be reported on to 1099 NEC. Okay, then when do I use that the gross proceeds to attorneys is when there's a litigation and then there's settlement paid to the lawyers. Only then you will use that box, if that makes sense. Not sure if that's clear. I can kind of talk about really specific scenario. If that wasn't enough, since I can't hear their feedback, it's kind of hard for me to do.
No, I think that's perfect. I think that's absolutely perfect. I think that kind of gets to the question. So, and again, you know, we're available. You will get our emails as part of getting the presentation, and feel free to email us. We're happy to jump on a call with you guys or somebody if we need to further clarify things or talk about how we can help you. Somebody asked about the pricing around the e-file. What if we want to send paper form? Eric, this one has come up before. What if we want to send paper forms to vendors? Is that an additional fee? What happens if they want paper? Not sure why anybody wants paper these days, but okay.
You know, some people are still distrustful of electronic transmissions, the cloud, the internet, what have you. We can absolutely file or provide paper copies via snail mail, included in the as-is pricing. You would still, the company would still get a PDF of all of the 1099s that were sent to their recipients via email or snail mail, and we would still electronically file with the IRS. Now, if they're asking us to file, to not file electronically with the IRS, our solution can't do that. We are going to e-file. It's almost instantaneous once we have your information.
That's right. That's right. And then similar but related. Sorry, I'm losing track here a little bit. There was something really related to this. Oh, the state piece of this. Youngson, you want to talk about how you handle the state side of the 1099s?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad that you pointed that out. So we can handle state filing requirement too, but this is important for you all to know that IRS announced that they won't be forwarding this 1099 forms, especially 1099 NEC form with the state. So what that does is we're not really sure at the moment. So I figure we would need further guideline from various states. They're going to come up with something, and usually it's not really timely in my opinion. So we would actually have to wait and see what the states decide to do. As for other forms like 1099 miscellaneous, 1099 dividend, 1099 interest, all those forms IRS shares with the state, and all of those we can take care of that for you.
Seems like there's always one lingering open item, at least with taxes and forms every year. And this year it's the state informational returns. It's always something.
Yes, we got about 15 minutes left. Let's, because some of these questions I think also that I'm skipping over, folks, and I'm seeing now, we're gonna get covered kind of through our rapid fire rapid fire FAQ. So let's, should we get into it, Eric? And we'll go through. So I'm seeing some things around the 1095C and some of those things as well. So I think we can get into some of that as we go through it.
Yeah, Young Sung's going to answer our first FAQ, which is what is the 1099 NEC?
So by now, if we have done a good job, you all know what it is. It's basically a new form introduced this year for tax year 2020, where you have to use 1099 NEC to report all of your payments to independent contractor as a non-employee compensation. And filing due is going to be, like I said, it's going to be February the 1st. So you have to issue recipient copies to your contractors by February 1st. And at the same time, 1099 NEC filing due date with the IRS is the same date. So February 1st of next year.
Thanks. And in reference to the question earlier, can we see the form? This link will take you to the IRS instructions for the NEC as well as the form. So let's jump ahead, rapid fire. David, does the 1099 miscellaneous still exist?
Yes, it does still exist. They've shuffled the boxes around because they replaced box 7 with the NEC form. So be mindful of that, particularly if you have to issue a correction for 2000 as you go forward, you're dealing with corrections. And it is, yes, that's it.
Yep, and we have the link to those instructions and form as well. So be careful if you're using boxes after number box 7. So what if I need to fill out a tax year 2019 or prior 1099 miscellaneous or NEC? Young Sung?
Yeah, so we kind of talked about, we covered this, right? So again, so to the NEC, 1099 NEC only applies to the tax year 2020 and forward, right? So anything prior to that, so let's say if you are, needing to file a payment that you made to a contractor for tax year 2019, no NEC, you're going to be using 1099 miscellaneous to do that work, okay?
Thank you. And David, what is a 1096?
Well, it's a summary page for all 1099s that are filed, and you only need this. I don't know why I get all the paper questions, but it's only required if you're filing the 1099 forms were paper filed with the IRS. If you file the 1099 forms electronically, you don't need the 1096. Excuse me.
If you use our service, you will not be getting a 1096.
That's right.
And Young Sung, we're going to really bring this one home. When are the 1099 NEC and W-2 forms due?
Again, this is probably 4th or 5th time I'm saying this. It's going to be February 1st of 2021.
So about 7 weeks from now.
Yes.
David, when are the 1099 forms due?
All the 1099 forms, so all the other 1099 forms, div, etc., except the NEC, must be delivered to recipients by February 1st and then to the IRS by March 31st of 2021. And then I think we're going to talk about a couple of the other forms, and some of those dates do vary, but those, other than the NEC form, that's how it works.
You get an extra 2 months for the other 1099s.
True.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd wait. Go ahead, Youngson. What were you going to say?
One more thing that I wanted to point out is that for your reference, so if you're paper filing it, which doesn't apply to our process, the filing due with the IRS for 1099 other forms other than NEC are going to be March 1st, because February 28th is also Sunday. So it's going to be March 1st if you're paper filing it.
Right, so January 31st is a Sunday this year. January 31st is a Sunday, so it's February 1st, and February 28th is a Sunday, so it's March 1st. Typically, those deadlines are at the end of the month, but it's different this year, 2021.
All right, David, I know this is your favorite, so I want you to answer it. What is a 1095C?
This is really good because this was a hot topic several years ago, particularly with the Affordable Care Act that came out, the tax filing. So as a heads up, I would say most of certainly the big payroll providers are doing this for folks these days. But if you need help, we can help with that as well. But the Form 1095-C contains important information about the healthcare coverage offered or provided to you by your employer. So it's information on the form, and it has to be referenced when you're filing your tax return along the way. The other interesting thing about this is the dates vary and they're driven by the states. So, I'm getting ahead of myself, but
Keep going, you're on a roll.
But in the interest of time, because I have a couple other things to talk about based on some of these questions, but on the 1095-C, the deadlines vary by state. For example, California has a March 31st, 2020 deadline, but the Texas deadline, where we also have a lot of clients, is actually March 2nd. So you need to check state by state, particularly if you're a company with multiple operations or multiple employees in multiple states. Be on the lookout for that, and also definitely check with your payroll providers, because most of the big ones anyhow, are providing those forms these days. If they're not, we can help.
All right, I'm going to take the last one. What about other forms? We can file any form for you. We get out of bed every day to fill out forms and file them for our clients. So if you have a form that we didn't talk about that you need help with, please contact us and we can help. David, I'm going to throw it back to you to go through some more of the audience questions. It sounds like they're still coming in.
Yeah, the other one was just a little bit, we've slanted this a little bit with our service, but there are other services out there. I wouldn't say a little bit, but there are other services out there. Our approach is unique because it does use electronic filing service, but it's in combination with some other tools, proprietary tools that we've added into the process to make it work really well. So you can Google it. Heartland has an option. There's other services like Track 1099 is out there, but be mindful of those. Ask all the questions. None of those other services, as far as I can tell, provide the type of service and value that we're providing in there. But if I know there's some of you are probably do-it-yourselfers out there, so if you want to try it, go for it. But also know we are here and we can help. And Eric, was there? Oh, I was going to go through some of these other questions. Let me take a look on here. Talked about state filing. There's some really specific questions on here. Let me see. I think we've answered a lot of these. Oh, so here's one. Any chance you guys will go over the contractor classifications that would trigger 1099 versus a W-2? I believe California has a new assembly bill that made changes to who is a contractor aside from the ABC. Can we review again an example of when we would have to file both an NEC and miscellaneous vendor? I'm getting, sorry, I ran through a stop sign there. So on that W-2 and NEC guideline, so we're not spending time on that. We have resources on our website around that very specific issue. We also have an HR outsourcing experts that can really help with those issues. And it's not really, I think my coaching is the form, if it's happening and you're seeing it at the form level, it's a little late in the process. You definitely need some help so that you can put in some preventative measures to kind of prevent doing the wrong thing as you go forward, because it can trigger EDD audits and a bunch of other things that can come along with some stiff penalties. So again, if you want to reach out to us, we can help with that. We don't go into it specifically in here.
No, and we've done entire hour-long webinars answering that question.
For sure.
We have on our website as well as numerous written articles about it.
Here's a good one. Are W-9s required each year or only when there is a change? Young Sung or Eric, you got any insight into that?
Your best practice is to get refresh, like a W-9 refresh every year. The reason why I say this is because some of your vendors may have moved to a different physical address or mailing. They may have different mailing address. it's always a good idea for you to, reach out every year and then, get an updated W-9. And, nothing has changed. And, if you have the signed W-9 in place, that'll suffice.
Yeah, and what I've seen, what we've done for some of our clients, and what I've seen best practices out there. One is, just an annual letter, inclusive of the latest form, out to all your vendors. So a couple things will happen, particularly if, ideally, if you have email addresses and/or physical addresses. Sometimes the physical address is better to use, but and sort of, it's a negative response. If nobody responds to you, it's a little bit concerning because on the mail address, because you're not sure if they received it. The email address, I think the one thing I would point out, it's really important to capture email addresses. A lot of the accounting systems have that capability of storing that email address in your vendor file. It's really important to do that because if you get one, when it comes time to do the renewal, you can email them. And then you can quickly find out, oh, this email address isn't valid anymore, right? So then that sort of triggers an action triggers an action and triggers an update and for work to be done. The mailing piece is a little bit more difficult if you want them to at least confirm back, or you could do it through a web process and have them just kind of confirm. You stand up something on your internal company website, just have them confirm their address, or when they receive something in the mail to confirm it. And then if certain vendors don't respond to you, you can go and chase them, so you can do it more on an exception basis. So there's a couple of things I've seen out in the marketplace. And then particularly when the really, really best practice is anytime you have a new vendor, you should be sending kind of a vendor welcome package. And in that vendor welcome package is to talk about how you are, how they're going to get paid, what the invoices should look like, where the addresses should be, all that information to make it easier for your vendors to get paid. And in that package should also include a W-9 that they need to complete and send back to you. So anytime you have a new vendor, that is really the best practice, which will save you a bunch of time on the back end.
Yeah, and to that I would add, just hold that check until you get the W-9, because that's when you have the leverage at the end of the year or in January of the following year when you're trying to file all your 1099s. You don't have a lot of leverage to get the person motivated to be talking to you and providing a W-9 for you.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of these. I'm not familiar with this. I'm going to ask you this. Does my company still have to have a FIRE, F-I-R-E account with the IRS, filing electronically through Armanino? I think I know the answer. Yeah, that's what I thought. Say it again because I was talking over you.
No.
Great answer. All right, David, we're at 10:58. Why don't we get it back to Nyla to wrap us up? I want to thank you and Young Sung for walking us through this, through the many changes, the solutions we're providing, and thank you to the audience for your engagement. All the questions are wonderful. We know you're very busy this time of year during a pandemic. We appreciate your time and value it very much. Thank you, Nyla. Can you bring us home?
Yeah, thanks again, everyone. As a reminder, you'll be receiving your CPE certificate within 5 business days, and as well, you'll receive the presentation with the link to the webinar recording, as well as the presenter's contact information within 48 hours. And again, feel free to email them with any questions that you have. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.